Welcome, guys. This is the C Note show. Here, men in relationship hell get both a man and a woman's perspective, so that he can stop blaming himself for everything. So, how do we not take 1,000% of the responsibility, but also take accountability for our part of what's going on? Right? That's what we're going to focus on today. So, Cynthia, say hi for us so we can get your beautiful picture on this.
As always, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's jump right into our Wayne's World clip today. I want to share this one because this has to do with standing within the feminine storm, right? So you may not like what's going on. You may be, panicking in your body or flooded, which is what happens with me when I can't think and I just kind of feel numb almost. Or you might be even angry or escalated depending on what's going on because this is the same, this is like the same conversation or the same fight. So this will play right into what I want to talk about with trusting yourself within the feminine storm.
Sometimes I wish I could boldly go where no man's gone before. But I'll probably stay in Aurora. What are you thinking about?
Cassandra. She's a fox. In France, she would be called La Renarde, and she would be hunted with only her cunning to protect her.
She's a babe.
She's a robo-babe. In Latin, she would be called Babia Majora.
If she were a president, she'd be BABE-rham Lincoln. Did you ever find Bugs Bunny attractive when he'd put on a dress and play a girl bunny?
No. No.
Neither did I. I was just asking.
Okay. Keep looking up.
Okay. Ah!
Yeah. Yeah. Keep looking up. Don't look away. Don't look away. Don't cower, right? Don't try to fight it. Be in it and be excited about it because the alternative is to have no storm in your life, to have no emotional storm in your life. And I don't think any man here wants that. No man here wants to just live in a cave and shut everyone else out and not have a relationship. I mean, you all know if you've done any kind of Google searching, you know that there's certainly a community of men, MGTOW. Red pill isn't MGTOW, but it pushes right up against it, right? Where MGTOW don't want to be in a relationship, period. They're not interested in a relationship at all. And you can go buy a robot. I guess there's robots out there you can go buy, literally. But that's not what I'm about, certainly. And I know every man here is not about that either. You want to know how to connect and how to be that modern, mature man that knows how to be in a relationship and be in that storm, just like Wayne and Garth there were in the face of the storm. Now, were they in any real danger? No, they weren't in any real danger, and neither are you when you're standing in front of your woman. With the rare exception of those of you that are going to get stabbed. I don't know. I don't know if anybody here has been actually stabbed by their woman. I've never heard of that actually happening. Maybe if you watch the news, I suppose you're gonna find something. But with all of us here, we're actually not in any physical, extreme, immediate danger. Just like Wayne and Garth, it was our body reacting. Like me in the past, in the face of the emotional storm, 5, 6 years ago, this is when I learned all this, guys. It was about 5 or 6 years ago. And I basically knew none of this. Even though I was a teacher and in mental health and special education and working with families, I couldn't see the back of my own head. And that's Cynthia's story too. And so I want you to jump on real fast, Cynthia. So I'm just so lucky to have this perfect unicorn of a woman is what the MGTOW guys would say, is that they think I have a unicorn, and they say that there's no such thing as a unicorn. But I found one in Cynthia, right? You're perfect. You never have an emotional storm. You never give me a hard time or anything like that, and everything's like just fucking peaches every day, right?
Um, oh gosh. Yeah, I was even thinking about like that question that Patrick raised. I loved about how, how to empathize plus have boundaries. And I was writing down the idea like emotional cutoff, and how, you know, that's our goal. Like we can set boundaries without emotionally cutting off from someone. And if we've ever had someone in our life, kind of cut us out, like, well, I'm not going to share with you, I'm going to like turn my face off from you, I'm going to turn off relationship from you, that's extremely painful. And I even notice, in myself, even in this incredible relationship with Jeff, if there's a trigger that hits me and I feel like inadequate or frustrated, and there's a desire in me to want to cut off, and like that's how I'm going to deal with it and not feel hurt or pain or frustration. And that's not a very proud thing I like to share, and it's definitely something that I then watch and then, okay, how can I do this better? But um gosh, the day perfection comes, I don't know if that will ever come, but I certainly appreciate the learning along the way.
Well, thank you. And you've learned to trust yourself as well. Our theme of this week is trust. And so many questions that I hear all the time, and Cynthia hears all the time, and I asked myself 5, 6 years ago, and men ask in the forum, when will she trust me again? And what does she mean when she says, I'm not ready to trust you, or I'm not ready to have physical affection with you or sex with you because I don't trust you yet? And how can I trust myself? And so Jason asks, do you lose more trust in your partner when you as a woman have to move the conversation forward if he's stuck in vulnerability? And if he's not going to be a man, I guess I'll have to be. Is that what you think, or is that what you feel? I want to bounce that over to Cynthia. So what happens for you when the man, quote unquote, gets stuck in the vulnerability or in the fear, and you feel like you have to set the container and or move the conversation forward?
And can share when I would lose trust in the man that I'm with, but not in that situation. In that situation, if my partner or a man is sharing, you know, vulnerability, emotion, and it's kind of a wash in that river of its all emotional experience and being driven by that, and I need to be the one who steps out. It's not that I don't like trust the man I'm with, it's more that it just puts me in a much more masculine place in myself. And it's like, okay, well, I got to go take care of things because, I'm the one who needs to hold the container. And I think the downside of that is that then decreases polarity. And so then you end up being in that like roommate situation with your partner or just friends because there's no feminine or masculine dynamic.
I think every man on here can probably relate to being in that roommate dynamic. And it happens slowly over time, right, guys? It's like the frog that's getting boiled in the water that's being turned up slowly over time. And we can almost feel like it's too late because we're stuck at the bottom of the ocean there. And we're under all that, let's call it, pressure. And if we come up too fast, we get the bends, right? It's like, okay, well, let's just change the subject here, and that's avoidance. I'll call that avoidance. When we dive down or when we avoid, I guess I'll just coin this right now. I've never said this before, but if we dive down and then don't know where to go with it, we can drown, right? Or if we try to just kind of cut it off there and don't use, say, the tool that I used yesterday to come back to positive vision, right? If we don't do that in a positive way and we just kind of avoid and just shoot ourselves up too fast, we get the bends. We'll see if that metaphor plays out, Cynthia. Does that make sense?
It does. And what, while you were talking, what I thought of was over long term, if the man, so if I need to move into my masculine and we're kind of like two kings riding side by side, and it's like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? We're in this together, and there's not a lot of sexual tension, and then I don't foresee him or experience him moving further into his masculine and inviting the feminine in me if he seems really comfortable with us being in the masculine place. That's when, if I really get honest and feel into my body, that's when I would start to feel kind of resentful and unseen and lost in the relationship because I have no connection to that sense of beauty and femininity and um, being taken on the adventure with him. I feel like I have to be like the king as well. So
Oh, wow. Wow, did you guys hear that? That she feels maybe within her that she's resentful that you're not sort of taking your role and that she has to be the king, or it's certainly not a turn on in that moment. You're not drawing out her femininity. But Ken makes a comment, first of all, crazy how I've emotionally and literally been having discussions with my 10-year-old self while while talking with my 10-year-old son. And that's growth, right? Oh man, I'm right there with you. I started this when my son was 11 and he's 16 now. And I go to the boardroom, which is an exercise that we do here in my coaching and in Cynthia's one-on-one coaching, where we can talk to the little boy, just like you're doing here, Kent, and then leave the boardroom and him feel heard without him driving the bus. Because that's what we don't want. We don't want to hand the wheel over. You know, we don't want to say like, fuck it, you take the wheel, because then good things aren't going to happen after that, right? And Kent's question is, while we may get stuck from a leadership standpoint, what are your thoughts on her leading all the way up to the point where tough decisions must be made? Can you clarify what you mean by her leading all the way?
Oh yeah. Just general life, general discussions. I guess I've always kind of been a more of a passenger on this ride, and it's a lot of decisions are kind of made to you know to kind of fit her needs, to kind of fit her expectations, to try to her, I guess, in a sense. And then I can see, and actually Cynthia touched on this. It's like I can see her frustration sometimes when my leadership is not there. But we are kind of at a toxic enough point right now where tough decisions are currently being made, but she refuses to, I guess, jump off that cliff. And it's been me who's been setting these last minute boundaries that have kind of shaped our current life, unfortunately. So I guess my leadership has stepped up when things have gotten really, really bad. I don't know if that's a sign that she wants to stay, if she currently is in a sense happy where we're at, or what that truly means.
So I have a quote from the book that I mentioned this week, and I'm reading right now. I'm on chapter 12, which is the masculine in relationship from Youngblood, and I just made this exact quote, and it's a similar question, Kent, to a client of mine. I have Paul. He's out of Seattle. He's now a retired surgeon. Actually, Cynthia and I have been working with him going on 6 months. And Paul's been married for 20 plus years. Cynthia, it's 26 or 7 years, something like that. They have, I believe, two grown daughters, and everyone's together in the house right now. He's been doing this work and become grounded, and he's asking, well, if my wife doesn't want to meet me, and she does in physical relationship or even in niceness some days, basically he'll say, hey, let's go for a walk. This is what he told me 2 days ago when I did a session with him. He said, hey, let's go for a walk. And he said that she just like stared at him, just stonewall resentment stared at him. And he needs to ask her if she's going to move forward with him in the relationship or if she's going to choose to not move forward. And that means connecting and being kind to one another. And so I read this quote, which says it's under setting direction on chapter 12. It's the second paragraph and third paragraph. So if you want your woman in her feminine, you need to take this on as some kind of decision. Bringing masculine clarity and direction alleviates her from having to do it herself. You have to take the lead in driving decisions. This does not mean you make all of the decisions. It means that you make sure a decision gets made, whether or not you're actually deciding, whether it was your idea or it was her idea. You're making sure a decision gets made one way or the other. You are proactive in identifying that a decision needs to be made, gathering enough information to form your own opinion or proposal, and then either making the decision or putting it on the table for the two of you to make. What the masculine does not do is ignore, pontificate, or wait for someone else to make the decision for you. So to answer your question, you will have to make some type of decision one way or the other here. So you cannot just allow her to be mommy, basically, right? And make the decision for you. There has to be some type of decision on your part. So if I ask you just straight up, Ken, what do you think the decision is for you right now? At least what's on the table. You don't have to make it, but what's the decision that's on the table?
Well, to kind of backtrack a little bit, this separation was in this space that she has created. I've been very clear that this is something that I've never asked for. I've just kind of had to deal with it. And every step since then, as far as, officially being separated, still living in the same house, I asked her literally this week, um, do you see a future? And she essentially said no. But, until I brought up that conversation, I don't know how long, would she have ever, jumped off that cliff to make that decision, which obviously I don't think she ever would have. So what I want right now is I'm still honestly currently working on my own clarity, and trying to figure out where I stand in my own life. And I think that's very important. It's very very new for me. It's very raw right now, and it's not easy. But I've taken some steps forward, and it's trying to put myself first, which has been very important.
Yeah, good, good. So there's two or three things there I want to talk about really fast. Okay. So your own clarity is important. There's you, there's her, and there's the relationship, right? So you're working on your clarity, she's working on hers. What do we do about the relationship part? That's one of the questions, right? Because those are different things. Okay. And then there's she's been leading all along the way, which is a mistake in your part. That's what you're insinuating, I think, here is whatever that may be. Some guys, I've got a let's see, I'm trying to recall his name right this moment. It's not Brandon. Sorry, I just lost his name, but he's a military recruiter out of Vegas, and I meet with him once a month because that's what he could do as far as time and investment and such. And his wife lives in Texas, and he's let her handle the bills and paying the bills and monitoring the bank account for the entire relationship. He hasn't touched it at all. And Charles, there you go. Sorry. So Charles, and so he hasn't touched it at all. And I said, well, that's a big mistake, right? And he already knew that was the case. And so he's gone to her, and this can apply. He's gone to her and said, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I realized something that I've done that's unfair to you, sweetie. It wasn't something I've done that's unfair. And what was unfair is I asked you to take care of all the bills for our entire relationship. And that must have been stressful. That must have been a burden for you. And that was a mistake. And so what I want to do is start taking over what I really should have been doing and partially taking the responsibility and sharing the responsibility with you. Okay, so with a woman, and Cynthia has told me this, with a woman, you can always say, I've been feeling into that, I've been thinking about it, and I've changed my mind. And here's what I want to do going forward. Same thing with children. That's exactly what you can do. Change my mind, and here's what we're going to do going forward. And you try that. That doesn't mean she has to follow the rules. She just has to do what you say. But here's what I would like to do going forward. Right? That's what you're going to do for the relationship. Even though you don't feel 10 out of 10, maybe you just feel like a 1 or a 2 right now. But that means as a man, you need to lead as a 1 or a 2 if you want there to be any potential. Because to answer another part of your question is, I believe, and you've heard this out there, guys, is that love is a verb. Love are actions that you do with a person. And either you're growing or you're dying. Right? There is no stasis. That's what Paul, the surgeon I mentioned, he said, it looks like his wife is okay with just a static stasis non-decision. And Kent, that's what you're asking too. And that's not the case. Okay, so if the relationship is going well, sure, you can have a stressful period. You can have something happen in the family, an illness. You can, money can be tough, difficult for a while. Something can happen, and that's fine. Meaning you can't do the acts of love as much. But if you just stop altogether doing the acts of love, the love will die. The relationship will die. And so part of your question is, you don't think that she would have ever come to you. Part of this is a subconscious test. She's wanting, as a woman, to bring out your kingliness, your leadership, your power. And it's a unspoken covert contract on her part as a woman for you to step the fuck up, basically. And she's not going to make a decision until she does. Okay. And once she makes a decision, she's already moved on, found another man, or already building a house behind your back. Okay. That's Blake out of Canada, rented an apartment, and moving in a week. She had to have lined that, right? Or whatever, or you just got served papers, even though you had sex 3 days ago. I mean, these are surprises that she hasn't decided until she decides. and then it's basically too late and you're playing mega catch up. And at that point, what I've seen is it takes about a year if you have, I'll just be real with you guys, if you have a shot at the relationship, first of all, like dying, being put behind us, and for you to grow something new takes at least a year, generally 1 to 2 years in my professional experience with working with men ongoing, full time now for 4 years. So I shot a bunch of stuff out there, Kent. How does that hit you? Right? What other question might you have on that?
To meet Charles, because that was honestly one of the first boundaries that, not a boundary, but one thing that I tried to insert myself. She was in charge of the finances. It's crazy you said that. That's exactly how I guess 2020 kind of started for me. As I said I didn't apologize. I didn't approach it that way, but I just said that's something that I want to kind of take control of in my life, and I guess in a sense help the situation. So that was step number one. So I guess it was a step. I don't know if it helped or not, but it was something I could relate to out of what you said for sure. From a sex standpoint, from a physical standpoint, there's been nothing for 4 months, and I honestly, there's whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, I've asked for that space for myself probably the last 8 weeks, because the more that you know I wasn't clinging, I wasn't going after, I wasn't pursuing, I wasn't anything. I was trying to give her space, but then in doing that, every time I tried to create my space, she clung back to me, and it became she's
Yeah,
reaching
it's
back,
like
and so it became
distancer and
very
pursuer, right? Distancer and
exactly
pursuer. Yeah.
it became very confusing, and I didn't really know how to handle it. I don't think I handled it well. I probably ignored too much and just tried to just be like I always have been, and I guess in a sense hope it gets better. But if I'm not an active participant, then I'm probably hurting more than I am helping.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say we can't sit down on the step. You can't sit down on the bottom step and whine or complain or give up. I mean, that's just not going to get you where you want, right? And we don't think that's what's going on, but that's what that is when we avoid or shut down, right? So, Kent, next time that she comes towards you, which from your story, I would bet $1,000 that there's going to be another opportunity like you've explained. Okay, I know she's going to come towards you. You're doing your work. You're more grounded in yourself. You're taking more leadership and masculine responsibility in the relationship. So I would guarantee she's going to take a step toward you at some point. How do you want to handle it then?
I can see where I've lacked, and it's from a emotional standpoint, from a I guess from a flirting standpoint, from a trying to make her feel sexy type of standpoint. I've failed at that, and I haven't danced on the staircase the way you've mentioned, and because honestly, I feel like the times that I have tried to dance on the staircase, I've been kicked off the banister, and it's to me, it's been almost a control issue, one way or the other, whether it's her or me, and it just we haven't danced very well together. Let's put it that way. So I guess that's a question for Cynthia too. Is like, how do I help her relinquish that control? I haven't demanded that she take care of everything, but she's wanted to, um, and and I've been okay with that. And that's obviously hasn't been great for our relationship. And here we stand, second space and separation later. You know, I'm trying to figure my shit out, and hopefully she's doing the same.
So you're going to help us here, Kent. Cynthia, ask him if you would please a pointed question about what he's tried as far as escalating physicality on the first or second step here, because that's where you are, Kent, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, sure. Actually, I'd love to ask what was first and second step for you and your wife when you first met, when you first started dating?
Um, First and second step. Well, we were in college, so things were, young and full of hormones and things like that. But it was a lot of movies. It was dining out. It was, taking walks. It was listening to music, going to concerts, things like that.
Oh, wow. And what's the nature of your discussions as you were walking and going out to dinner and things like that?
We were both into. I'm both into sports. Both both competitive, both very very direct to the point. Didn't really have a lot of deep conversations. It was more, I guess, hard to think about this and say this out loud, but it was kind of like talking to a roommate.
Yeah.
So it just kind of just general conversation, buddy conversation.
I'm gonna call you out for a second, Kent. You were like,
Okay.
"Hey, dude, let's get a brewski and play ping
Eh.
pong," just like that, right?
No, no, not at all. It was talking about family. I mean, I've been very close to her family, and she's been very close to mine, and talking about brothers and sisters, and talking, I guess, sports in general, our accomplishments, I guess, things like that when we first started dating.
Yeah, sure. And then, so again, then if we fast forward, what does step 1 and 2 look like now that all this time has passed and you're in this particular place?
Right now, making sure the kids are in bed, um, and you know, talking about each other's days, trying to engage in, the good and bad of the day, not just one or the other, but trying to um, talk to each other, best of your day, worst of your day type of conversation, and that's pretty much about it. There's times I, you know, try to help her cook. I do cook myself, but try to do things together in the kitchen, daily chores, things like that.
So when you've wanted to initiate more intimacy, like physical intimacy, what does that look like?
A lot of me approaching, maybe unsuspectingly from maybe behind, a kiss on the neck, holding hands while watching movies, things like that. Um, and I guess to me that is kind of an advance and trying to move up the staircase. But a lot of times that was probably met with not so welcomely results, and so a lot of times I just maybe stopped and didn't try to pursue as much over the years.
And you said over the years, is there anything recently that you have tried, or has it been kind of a complete?
It's been pretty complete, probably the last at least 6 months. Um, Prior to that, it was crazy how we attended a wedding together last October, and she opened up to a lot of my family members saying this is the happiest she's ever been, and and then fast forward a couple months later, here we go down this rabbit hole. So it's been hard to connect on a consistent basis. Nothing ever seems to be, I guess, good enough in life. She's always wanting more, and sometimes I feel that I can't provide a lot of her expectations, and so it's been hard to dance that staircase, and it's been hard to even engage in a lot of meaningful conversation lately.
Thank you for continuing to dive into how to do that when you've been met with so much. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. Um, if I was in that situation, that would be a time when I would be kind of triggered to shut down, because if it's not never enough for the other person, like how could I possibly show up in that manner? One thing I've been thinking about as you've been talking is, uh, you had mentioned, you said to your wife, "Hey, do you have a vision for us?" And this going forward, and her answer was like, "No." But I'm curious if you, as you start to get clear on what you're wanting in relationship and the vision you hold for that, whether it's with your wife or another person in your life, um, I'm curious what that would do to your conversations if you were to lead with, "Hey, this is my vision for relationship with you in a year." And putting in some of the things that you really want, like, I want to do this together. I want to sit and have, Sunday coffee together and have us discuss what's going on in life and where we're going. And again, it's like you're sharing that out of the joy of what you're wanting, whether it's with her or with someone else, but you're saying, this is my vision. It's a very different point of attraction than asking a woman, do you have a vision? Because then you give her an opportunity of something to lean into. And I think that's all that physical intimacy is too. Like, we go up and maybe the back of the neck is too much right now, but there's just a laying hand on the arm, or the barest moment of the hand, a hand holding. You're giving her something to lean into, to rest into, and to feel your masculinity in.
How that conversation would look, I honestly don't know, because I have had a hard time um, even understanding what my visions are. I've always been a go with the flow, just do just enough, a people pleaser, a prototypical nice guy, and I've that's been one of my top goals, is to figure out what is going to make me happy, and figuring that out first. So honestly, I don't know if I could picture that conversation and starting it by saying, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to see. I've always been very very complacent in the moment, and just saying, well, this is how life is, and been trying to make the best out of each day.
Hey, Cynthia, I just want to jump in for one moment, please. And Kent, just be balls honest with me here. Are you even interested in escalating physically with her right now?
Physically, no, not right now.
Okay, that's one thing I wanted to bounce, that I was feeling. So Cynthia, I love what you're saying, and I totally 100%, 1000% agree. And Kent, if you wanted to do little drive-by touches, where for every man on here that's listening to this out in the world that wants to escalate, maybe it's just a half of a second touch, or a half of a second touch, or a half or 1 second hold of the hand, and then move along. And that's where Cynthia is leading you, Kent. And I'm
Mhm.
feeling you're like, I don't even want to do that.
What I will say though is, I was watching my feminine, my attraction, as you were talking, and every time you said, I just kind of go with the flow and I'm easygoing, it was kind of like, oh. And every time you
Mm.
said, but I'm really looking into like what I want and my vision, my body was like, oh, like, so whether or not you take this in your current relationship or the future, I was kind of on a roller coaster with you, because
Mm.
the ebb and flow and just easy going, the vision, the desire was like, oh, hell yeah.
Gotcha. Good stuff.
That's
I get it.
phenomenal feedback. Yeah. And Kent, finding your mission is your mission right now. Finding
Hmm.
what you want is what you want right now. And I actually started in that place too. When I would journal. First of all, when I started journaling, it was just like, I want to write. This sucks. I hate journaling. I like literally just wrote whatever. And then I started to say, I want to know what I want. I want to know what I want. I'm searching for what I want. So that is your want right now. And that's what Cynthia just gave you the feedback on. And if, give it a little bit more horsepower for you,
Hmm.
bud, right? Like a little bit more, I'm searching for what I want right now, and just fucking own it.
Absolutely. And I appreciate Cynthia's note there too. It was, I've always had the mindset of, I've been on her emotional roller coaster ride. Well, maybe she's been on mine too. So it's a great point.
Fellow coach and someone who I very much look up to and appreciate. I appreciate you, Tim, wants to jump in. And I'll just preface with, Tim, I consider Tim a colleague, a friend, and someone that I go to with my own personal shit as well. I like to say that we have to, we want mentors above us, and guys that are going through stuff that we can share with on our left and our right, and men that we're also supporting and helping too. So all those levels, and I consider Tim to be certainly to my side and or above me. And so I love to have Tim jump in.
Thank you. And thank you guys for doing this. This is just awesome. I love hearing what you're saying, and it's so right on. The thing I just wanted to throw out there is the idea that, everything flows out of connection in a relationship. It doesn't, sex is not connection. Affection is not necessarily connection. Conversation, communication, not necessarily connection. But if you start with connection, then all those things can flow out of that. And men, we're physical creatures, and we tend to go for the physical pretty quickly before there's connection. We think that if I touch her on the arm, that's connection. And it has to be the other way around. You're connected, and then the touch comes from that. So what does connection look like? It's like, well, it can look like a lot of things, but I love what Cynthia asked. What was it like when you first met? How much did you know about your wife? And this is for Kent, but it's for anybody. When you first met, like nothing, right? You didn't know anything. Were you curious? Did you want to get to know what made her tick? What she thought about, what she felt? Maybe even what her aspirations are in her life? And then we build up over time this idea of who the person we're married to is, and that's who we relate to. And we stop being curious, and we stop paying attention, and we stop really seeing the other person. So what I just want to throw in is if you want to reconnect with your, or connect with a girlfriend, wife, whoever, even your children for that matter, start with being curious and really seeing them. Like, pretend like you don't know them, or that everything you know about them is only a little bit, so that the questions become not, how was your day? It's more like, I was thinking about life in general and this, that, and the other thing. Or I wondered what it is. Did you read that article about this? And you start conversations that are back and forth, not just reporting. How was your day is reporting. And it's fine, but it's like watching the news, It's not, it doesn't engage the heart usually, which I think is the most important thing about connection. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that. Definitely connection comes first. So I think, Kent, maybe what Tim is also saying for you in particular is that you didn't even realize you were connecting with her prior to the physicality, right? Beautiful. Cynthia, how does that hit you, what Tim just said?
I loved that. There was a question even on the forum last night. A gentleman was asking, he's like, how can I avoid those moments when, we all put on sunglasses, right? Of our perceptions of who we've been in the past, how we're, raised by our parents, and we see the people in our lives through that lens, and that may not necessarily be seeing them accurately or seeing their truest intent. And so I love what Tim said about you were always looking to know the person in front of us in new and different ways. And I tend to go like, I want to go really, really deep, and or you might be going really high in this direction. uh, to me, that's what keeps relationship, that's what keeps sex, that's what keeps connection so dynamic and exciting, because I don't believe that any of us are just stagnant human beings, that we're always the same person. We're always learning from our experiences. So there's always something new to find out. So I love
That's great, Cynthia. Thank you. And I just want to throw, if you want to do a really edgy exercise, this is probably for me, the best exercise in the world to actually get in touch with compassion, empathy, and connection. And it's really simple, but it can be really intimidating. And it's merely this. It's called the 1-minute eye gaze. You basically sit facing the other person and you look them in the eyes without speaking. Don't even have to touch, just for 1 minute, which becomes a little long when you're looking into someone's eyes. And then it's true that, the eyes are the window of the soul. And I have experienced this, but I've also seen studies where social barriers and prejudice and all sorts of things get dropped when you really spend time looking into another human's eyes. At first it's sort of surface, but then the seconds tick by and all of a sudden you're going deeper and you're really seeing the person. Now, you might not be in a relationship where that's doable, but maybe you are. So that's the thing. But maybe if you can't do that, then the next time that she's doing the dishes or cooking or reading, whatever, just look over and look at her face. Look at her eyes, look at her eyebrows, look at her nose, her mouth, her hair. Like really take it in. Like see her. She might even feel like she knows you're watching and like, get embarrassed or whatever. And you can just smile. Just say, I'm just enjoying looking at you. That's all. That's the kind of thing that creates warmth and connection with someone else. And being seen is like so healing. Being really seen, not just physically, but that's one way to do it. But witnessing another person is like a big gift you can give them. So, just wanted to add that.
Oh my gosh, Tim, what you just said about being seen and even that embarrassment of being seen. Even if a woman is like a little embarrassed or she has like some hardened parts of like, oh, whatever, she totally pushes it off. Deep down, that is everything to her. Um, when I think about how the feminine loves to be seen, I think about my niece when she was 5 years old, and she had on this adorable little dress, of course. And all these adults were sitting in the living room around her. It was a holiday. And she put a red bucket on her head and then just spun in circles. And we were all laughing at her. And you could just hear this like muffled giggle inside the bucket. And everything about that was like, oh, this is the feminine who was bringing such beauty and pleasure to us and was so appreciating that we were appreciating her. So that I always think about that when I think about the desire to be seen.
I love that. That's great. That's beautiful.
I'm going to jump in. So I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in this for all the guys that are like, oh my God, I want to vomit in my mouth. That sounds great, but I'm not anywhere near that. And that just brings pain back into my stomach, into my chest, into my throat, and I want to cry. I'm going to bring that out with a question that I had from the forums. Where I struggle is how or why to unconditionally love her when she continues her avoiding and runaway behavior. I know. It's unconditional love. It's the name. But why would I continue to unconditionally love her when she clearly exhibits none of that love to me? Why waste that energy on someone who is rejecting me? I would be interested in Cynthia's take, and I'm going to say certainly Tim's take on this as well as any of the men. So why would I waste my energy and time on someone who is rejecting me?
Well, I'll just jump in real quick. I was part of one of the forums discussions about unconditional love, and I actually have a little bit of a struggle with that. Like I certainly see, our children, there's people in our lives that it's just that they're from us and it is unconditional. But with partners, we chose to have them in our lives, and we can always choose in every moment whether they're there. So I do believe there are like conditions, like I would call them boundaries of how we're treated and how we want it to go. And that being said, this kind of touches into Patrick's question in the beginning. The things that bother us most in another person, they're painful and hurtful. And if all we feel is hate and resentment for how they're treating us, we're always seeing a little bit of a reflection of ourselves. So if someone else is judging us, there's always a little part of us that is judging us as well. And so there's a huge practice of, if we can see another person in their hurt little girl place, with, hey, there's compassion here for this person who's struggling. We are always then giving ourselves compassion and love for the less than perfect parts of ourselves. So that's just what I wanted to add to that.
I would absolutely second that, Cynthia. That, but the most obvious answer to that question, I would say, is because loving makes your life better. That's why. Why unconditional love? Well, I don't know if it can be unconditional. I agree with Cynthia, but why have compassion? Why have empathy? Why have love for someone? Because it makes your life better. Because it's a choice that you were saying earlier, Jeff. It's a verb, and you decide to do it. Now, the other side of the equation is, and I always say, take the high road, but don't get run over. It's you're not going to stand for abuse. You can love someone, and maybe it's from a distance even. And the way you love them is by, you were saying, Cynthia, you see, wow, she's wounded and she's trying to survive the only way she can. And right now it's in being aggressive, or it's being, have you ever tried to help a wounded dog? They'll bite you, and really badly. They really will. They're scared, and they don't know you're trying to help them, and they will go after you. Um, and I saw a video of this just the other day. It was a dog caught up in a something or another, and this policeman goes in, and the way he's dealing with this dog without getting bit is amazing. So you can still have compassion and caring for someone, and understand that they're not going to return it. The farthest thing probably from unconditional love to me would be, I will love you if, I will love you in order to get this.
That's the opposite of, right?
Yeah, that would be the other polar opposite of unconditional love. And we strive to have probably some sort of eros, or not eros, agape, unconditional love. I don't know if it's attainable, but 100%. And I think that, this is weird. You said something, Cynthia, that was really, you said love for our children. I've read some stuff, and I've thought about this a lot, that a man looks at a woman and sees her love for her children and says, why can't she love me like that? Or they see their mom's love. Why doesn't my wife love me like that? And I don't think it's doable. I think the answer is, she's never going to love you like that. That's okay. It's a different type of love, because it also involves other things like eros, like sex and things like that. So I don't know. I just thought of that for a moment. It's kind of off the topic, but that's kind of my answer.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Now I understand why that love looks different than the love that I'm feeling from her.
Yeah, and that's why when they say, the guys say, and sometimes in some of the other communities, well, she'll never love you the way you want her to. My question would be, well, how do you want her to? What's your measuring stick for that? Is it the way your mom loved you? Is it the way she loves her kids? What is it?
Yeah, and we didn't learn what that should or could or can look like. We didn't have a model. I didn't have a model for what that would necessarily look like. My dad, he'd give me the shirt off his back, but it was work and then take care of shit. And my children need attention now. Like, let me make sure they're alive. My dad was born in 1943 outside of Savannah, Georgia, rural Savannah, Georgia. You just take care of your shit. He had to support his entire family when his father died, and his father was in his 40s. So my dad at 20 years old had to support his family. So that's my father, right? And now I can understand that. But when I was 9 years old and I took a break from shoveling the driveway, and that's when he happened to come out and he said the word lazy, that burned into my mind. And now I really that's in my boardroom where I have to go and like, okay, am I being lazy? And he just doesn't, he just wants me to succeed in life, right? He was doing the best that he could.
Yeah, that's great. Your boardroom. I know. I have a committee that wakes me up in the middle of the night. We're having a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Tim, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Cynthia, any last words before we call it for today?
Well, I was listening to Tim talking, and Tim, I so appreciate what you shared and the energy you hold in it. And again, I'm kind of tying back to the question that started our chat, which is, how can I love and have compassion and have boundaries? And as Tim was talking, I was thinking, the word that signifies that we are having love and compassion is the word and. So I can absolutely share with the people in our lives, hey, this is something really appreciate you for. I'm really grateful for, and then we can be very solid in our boundaries. I'm not okay with you speaking with me in this way, or calling me this name, or blaming me for this. You know, and the vision I have for our relationship is this. So that and carries such a different energy than but, which kind of negates everything we might have said before. And so that just was what popped into my mind as Tim was talking. So.
Beautiful. Phenomenal. That's a great way to end. So, gentlemen, go to greatmenmovemountains.com/C note if you want to ask us a question offline, or if you want to be a member of our private Facebook community. This is the C Note Show, brought to you by greatmenmovemountains.com every Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Mountain. Have a great weekend.
Bye.